Hello, I'm Daryl Mitchell, co-founder of Zenki Energy, and I want to talk to you briefly about electromagnetic fields and some of the ads I've seen recently for particular products and a lot of the misinformation that's being shared. Firstly, electromagnetic fields are not evil. We need them in everyday life. We need them for everything from our computers to running our fridges to our mobile phones, everything. But what we have in modern times is a proliferation of these fields, millions and millions of times more than our ancestors were exposed to. So there's two things involved in this that I want to be really clear about. One is firstly the strength of these fields, so that if you're really close to high tension power lines or substations or transformers or meter boxes outside your house close to living areas, well then you want to have prudent exposure. You want to limit our own biofield to the exposure to strong electromagnetic fields. And when we're talking strong electromagnetic fields, we're talking normally about the ones that come from power lines. We're not talking about other things on the electromagnetic spectrum. For example, gamma rays, those types of radiations. Obviously, once they get up into the ionizing level, they're dangerous to our body. But electromagnetic fields, what I see with people producing particular products is that they have a misunderstanding of these things. And I want to endeavor to clarify this more from a higher Qigong perspective and from an energetic, bioenergetic perspective. Is that firstly, limit your exposure to strong electromagnetic fields. That's the first thing. So in other words, limit the amount of time that you're on a mobile phone, even though mobile phones aren't necessarily a strong field. If you measure it with something like the tri-field meter that measures electric, magnetic, and radio waves. So it actually has on here basically international standards. So if it goes into the red, it says that you're possibly exposed to too strong a field. Now, they're international standards according to standard science. We are a bioelectric being, and there's other things involved in being around electromagnetic fields. Just because, for example, that you can't measure the field with something like a tri-field meter doesn't necessarily mean that it's not affecting the biofield, or if you like, the chi and the coherence of the energy systems in the body. In fact, we could demonstrate this years ago using things like the Life Information System 10 biofeedback computer, which is called the Listen computer. And we demonstrated that even the photons coming out of a torch powered by a 1.5 volt battery would show a stress response through things like kinesiology and using the Listen computer system. So it wasn't always about the strength of the field. If we were close to high tension power lines, standing underneath them or near a substation or outside near a transformer on a pole, we would show an unlocking kinesiology, for example, because of the strength of those fields that you could measure with something like the tri-field meter. But when we demonstrated that the system also showed a stress response from just the light beam being powered by a misqualified electromagnetic field from something as simple as a 1.5 volt pen light battery, it says it's not just about the strength of the fields, it's also about the integrity of the fields, if we can use that there's a chaotic pattern that causes a stress response in the system. So over the years, I've experimented with different devices, and I see people coming up with all sorts of things saying there's two main disruptive, dangerous electromagnetic fields in the world right now, or radiations. The most disruptive radiations are nuclear, gamma radiations, those really high ionizing frequencies on the electromagnetic spectrum. Normal electromagnetic fields don't fall into ionizing radiation. They just disrupt the electromagnetic or the bioelectrics of the body. So if we're going to try and have a thinking that says, oh, electromagnetic fields are terrible, I need to block them or somehow shield myself from them, well, in effect, all you're really doing is limiting the effect of those fields in the environment, certainly if it's a computer or a mobile phone or other things that need telecommunication. So it's not an effective way to work. And also, you can't live in a Faraday cage. You can't just block yourself off from all of these fields. They exist every single day in every single way. And so we have different understandings when we're working with the biofield of the body. We understand that the chi, the subtle energy systems of the body, are affected by the information in these fields. So we've talked about the strength of the fields and being prudent about your exposure. Now there's a completely different thing. If a pen light battery can produce a chaotic field through the light being shone on someone's thymus, for example, to cause a stress response showing in kinesiology or through a biofeedback computer system, then it says there's other things at play. It says that the information at the subatomic level, if you like, if we could use that language, is disruptive and causing some sort of stress response in the body. So the key is not necessarily to try and block these fields or to produce a device that produces a very negative quality of energy itself. And this is the problem I see with most devices out there, certainly orgone type devices, which are just basically free energy capacitors, a combination of, if you like, an insulator and a conductor in varying forms, whether in a dome shape or a circle or a pyramid, it doesn't matter. The effect is the same. They're a low quality chi device that bioelectric systems of the body do not like, and they do not lift you to a higher level. The only devices that really work are those that understand higher Qigong principles, and we call this higher energy information. This is as it was taught to me by my teachers. What we really want is to come come to electromagnetic fields with an understanding that they're disruptive and chaotic and affect the biofield. They're not necessarily in harmony with it. So we need to therefore have particular devices that work at a higher Qigong level, understand this higher energy information idea, and therefore are tuned, blessed, sealed, and protected to deal with EMFs and disruptive fields at that level. So they're not trying to block out the field at all. All they're endeavoring to do, if you have a device like this on your body, is endeavoring to give your body the buffer, extra reserves to deal with these chaotic bits of information coming in from EMFs. And if you happen to have one of these devices that has a coherent higher energy information field, a higher Qigong principle field on your home, then it's also assisting to calm those chaotic fields. So this is important to understand, that we don't go into doom and gloom and fear about EMFs, that we understand that really they're part of everyday life, they're going to increase in everyday life, and the proliferation of them is in some sense a concern, but in other senses it's understanding that our technology is also what moves us forward in our evolution right now. And so we need something that has a higher Qigong understanding, that works at a higher energy information level using higher or advanced Qigong principles. And therefore what we do is we establish a coherent, calm environment, either on the body by wearing something and carrying it on our person, whether it's in a ring or a bangle or a pendant, or having a simple device like a home calm that we place on the house power that just calms the energy fields. Now, all of this can be demonstrated with kinesiology and with something like the Lecker antenna, although I do prefer something like the Lecker antenna because it has a gradient scale on it. Your thoughts aren't influencing the outcome, and things like kinesiology I find to be too coarse an instrument to use with these subtle fields. So I hope that gives you just a little bit of information, and we'll chat more about it in the future. Daryl Mitchell signing off from Zenki Energy.